Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about St. Teresa football history this evening. I'm really looking forward to this event. My name is Brit Robertson. I'm chairman of History of the Heartland, and this is our 6th Living Legends event. Previous Living Legends event included Fans Field with Rose Skidmore, 1960s Stephen Decatur High School basketball greats, the Decatur Police, Decatur Firefighters, and Stephen Decatur teachers. So tonight's discussion is being videotaped. It'll be on the History of the Heartland YouTube channel if you'd like to view it later or invite your friends to do so. We'll also invite you to follow our page where we have a daily dose of Decatur history on the History of the Heartland Facebook page. A few thanks without some people without which tonight would not have been possible. Bryn and her crew here at Doherty's for hosting us. Bill Moore for sound. Rutherford Video for our videotape this evening. Special thank you to Kevin Boaz for inviting our panel of guests this evening. And last but not least, for Ann Owens. Ann is the founder of History of the Heartland and the organizer of tonight's event. All right, so Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the first of the panelists.
Thank you so much, Brett, and thanks everybody for coming. We're just going to tell some stories today from our hearts. We don't have anything, I don't have anything prepared. We're just going to tell some stories. One thing I would encourage other younger generations is just stay in touch with your teammates. You guys, there's a finite number of amount of time, and there's a finite number of guys, and it's hard. Football's hard, and when you go through it together, you learn a lot about each other, and it's a brotherhood. It really is. And so stay in touch with your teammates over the years. That's what I'll say as an old fart. And right now I'm going to introduce Coach Ed Boehm, who is a legend at St. Teresa. There's a lot of legends in the room here, which is great, and I appreciate that. So whoever wants to tell a story, please do. Coach Boehm's got some interesting information here, so I'll turn it over to Ed.
I could tell some whopper stories, starting when Kevin played.
Before that.
Last night, got on the phone with Deacon Davis over here. Everyone knows Deacon. And we decided to run and go through the record books and figure out who coached St. Teresa High School. And we're talking about is the inception. So the first team that St. T had a coach was a guy by the name of Art Long, and he coached in the 30-31 season. That was followed up by a guy named Tom Walsh, who coached in the 32 season. I guess I should be given their records here. Art was 3-11 record. You got Tom was 10-11. There was a Phil Newman for 1 year. He was 1-7. Then there was a Marty Peters. And we're trying to figure out if that related to the Peters that are still here. But he coached in the 36 season. We were all born at that time, weren't we? Yeah, I feel that old. That was followed up by a guy named William Leary. He coached in 37-38. Then you have Bob Burmeister, coached in, he had 2 stints. He coached in 40, 41, 42. Nick Kennedy came in and coached in 43, 45. And then Burmeister came back and coached in 46, 49. Or 46, 47, 48 there, and his overall record was 11-15. And then Joe Venturi. Do you guys know Joe Venturi? You heard the name before or anything? Okay, so if you went through St. T in the 60s, you knew about the 50s. And Joe was an excellent coach here at St. T. Joe coached from 49 all the way up to 60, and his overall record was 46, 42. Then there's Coach Ernst. Coach coached from 60 to 67. And then in 68, Dickie Munn took over the program. And Dickie's overall record was 40-12. And then the next guy, he didn't destroy the program, so we're happy about that. That was myself. You think Munn just yelled at his players? He used to yell at his staff too. I was his offensive line coach. He didn't like the way they were running or something. And I'm going, hell, I can't do anything about the guy running. So anyway, Dick was good, and I learned a lot from him, of course. After myself, there was a well, it was a good one.
He lost 3 games.
32-3. So, okay. And it was all coaching. Those kids, I'll tell you what, no one wanted them. It was the coaches.
Got the best out of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
I should tell you what Jerry Dawson called them. Here, the team wins 2 state championships in a row. He goes, "Oh, you guys are nothing but bag holders." And Jerry has a point there too, because Jerry's team, of course, was an excellent team. They when I came to St. T, I just finished my senior year at Illinois State as starting right tackle there, and then came and coached Jerry and that line. I thought, man, these guys hit as hard as the college kids do. So, and that tells Jerry scholarship down to Southern, along with Mike Doyle and O'Connell. Jerry, anybody else off that team went down there? Well, yeah, we know Kevin was down there now. Yeah,
I think that was it for that team, though.
yeah.
That's quite a few.
Pat Althoff, absolutely all-state player there. So, as I'm looking around the table here, I'm getting off course, but I'm going to talk until you tell me to shut up. So, Pat here and myself and a kid named Nick Buford, we all scholarshiped up to Illinois State. And then we got Doug comes along, and he scholarships up to Illinois State. So through this program, as you go through it, now Jerry, you played baseball instead of football there. One of the finest quarterbacks we've had here. Go right ahead. That's Jerry Unser if you didn't recognize him. So he's good. Then you got Mike Boyd back here, another excellent quarterback in the program there. And so, where am I? Okay. All right, Ralph McQuiggan took over and won the state championship in 79. And then there's Craig Bundy, Dale Patton, Scott Davis, of course. We tried to get Scott to come tonight, but he had something that he had to do. Tim Briley, Mark Ramsey. Ramsey finished second in the state in 16. And then he won the state in 22. Good. And then, of course, our illustrious coach sitting over here at the table, Brett Miller. People.
Yeah, coach.
So what I was going to just kind of tell you, when I took over, I'm going to start the BS story early here. So
We're ready for those.
yeah. But when I took over in 74 season, like I said, I was assistant coach for 1 year in 73. And 74, and it was kind of a magical year, you know what I mean? Here, I was all excited about, the home football team and all this stuff, but also what was happening in the state. And 74 was the first time that there were going to be football playoffs. Now, we've been begging for those football playoffs, and when you talk to Coach Munn back in that time, the teams he had, we were ready to go, you know what I mean? And they just, the board of directors just wouldn't pass it. And finally in 74, but of course, as a young coach, you're going, oh hell, that puts a lot more pressure on me. Not only we have to win the conference, now we got to win 4 more games to win the state, you know what I mean? But like I said, we hit the task. But in 74, there's an article that came out, and I always remember this. I believe it was Mark Tupper wrote an article, And we graduated a lot of kids on that 73 team, Jerry's team. And so we didn't have very many seniors coming back either. So it ended up we had 5 seniors is all we had, and then we had underclassmen to fill in the holes during that season right there. But those 5 were excellent. I mean, they were great kids, and they loved to play the game. That's where it took off from there. But also the article, getting back to the article, Tupper writes, the only thing returning for St. T are the uniforms. And so we're going, wait a minute, you got to still put bodies in them. But and so and the kids stick this to heart too. They go, wait a minute, everyone's selling us short here. In the playoffs that year, you had to win the conference to be in the playoffs. Okay, you couldn't sneak in the back door, or I don't know. I think nowadays if you go 500, you get into them. There were only 6 classes, and we were 2A. We're seated out of the 2A bracket there. And if you could lose one game in your conference, and you might have a chance at being in the playoffs. But basically, it was the best. You won your conference, you had a seed there. And of course, at that time, the state decided that they're going to cut the state in half. And the teams that are, I'm going to say north of Bloomington, were going to come in out of the north. So those teams are going to play each other in the 2A. We're coming out of the south now, so we're south of Bloomington. So we had to beat all the teams in the southern part of the state that were in 2A. You had your champion out of 2A in the north winning those, and then you Clyde in the middle at Illinois State University. And this is one thing that we were kind of grateful for. We're glad we came out of the south, that we didn't come out of the north. North's a little bit harder road, even at that time, and I still think that to this day they still have that formula. And a lot of the coaches are complaining and says, what if the number 1, number 2, and number 3 teams in the state are out of the south? They said, doesn't matter. We want a south versus north and meet at Illinois State, you know what I mean? And so with that stipulation. And of course, we played that season. We started with Gillespie. But at that time, we finished our season. We beat Sullivan on a Friday night. We had to turn around on a Wednesday night and play our first playoff game. And then we had to turn around on Saturday and play the second playoff game. So it was kind of a little bit rough there. We did more chalk talking than we said, hey, you're physically fit. We did some running, stuff like that. But we said, let's learn what they're doing to us and see how we can beat them. And we were very fortunate. Then, of course, we went on and won 2 more. We won the state that year. So we're very excited about that. So, but like I said, St. T is a wonderful place to coach. And then our 75 team, all I can say about that is, I was talking to Jerry, and he was saying his junior year that they only scored 1 touchdown all year, which is wonderful. But we also have the state record too. No one scored on us. We went through the 75 season without giving up a touchdown, giving up a point. So, like I said, we had some kids. They were great kids, and they did well. All right, that's my spiel. I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin.
Okay. Well, first, he mentioned record books. So, first, I want to give a shout out to Jacardi Wright. I mean, is this kid doing us right, doing us proud? I mean, hopefully he gets healthy and he can make the roster next year. But if you look at the IHSA record book, St. Teresa's all over it. Jerry's in there. Jerry threw 8 touchdown passes in 1 game. Some jackass threw 9, so he's second. But he's in the record book. Jacardi Wright's all over it. Sean Dunning's in it. Jacardi is number 1 all-time touchdowns in a season. He scored 55 touchdowns in 1 season. That's number 1 in the history of Illinois State football, any class, small, large. So that's something to be proud of.
that St. Teresa's all over the all-time record book. But I want to talk a little bit about Coach Mudd. He was in our era, Coach Mudd, whose name was a couple others. And I want to mention, too, that Ed Boehm is in the Hall of Fame at Illinois State. So let's give him a round of applause for that. He's a Hall of Famer. Name's on the field. Coach Mudd came in, and he was a young man. You know, when looking back, he was a young coach. I would say full of piss and vinegar. I don't know what you guys think, but he was a serious guy about football. He did some innovative things. We had scouts that went out and scouted our opponents. Dr. Daniel Lanzotti was one of them who just recently passed, and rest in peace, Danny. So we knew going into playing games even in the early 70s, well, 1970, what our opponents were going to do. So that helped us. We were in the Corn Belt Conference that year, and we played, we beat Central Catholic the first game. We thought pretty good. Then Normal Community came here, and we beat them. And when we beat Normal Community, we're thinking we might be pretty good. And then we played MacArthur. MacArthur came to St. Teresa, and sorry if MacArthur people see this, but they were cocky. Man, they were out on our field and coming over to our side of the field with their helmets off, yucking it up. And then we beat them. They weren't yucking it up anymore.
These two.
So that was a big win for St. Teresa, I think, at that time. And just wanted to mention Coach Mudd was innovative. We had played with 4 wide receivers sometimes, 3 wide receivers. Jerry threw, I don't know your numbers, but they were good for those days. I remember one game it was pouring down rain, and what we did was he had tacks. We had tacks on our fingers, and we filed them down, and we taped and Jerry threw for about 300 yards that day in a pouring down rain. But so I'm going to turn it over. I want to turn it to Deacon, and because this is a guy who really should be, talk about legends, he should be in St. Teresa's Hall of Fame for the time and effort he's put into the program, and we all appreciate it, Deacon. So come up and give us a shout here.
I dig it.
This is the best one. Come on, sit down. Sit down here.
I'm not a speaker.
This is the best one.
Let me see that. Well, they leave me out up here by myself, and I'm not really a speaker. I can tell stories. Mostly, you guys got to bring the idea up, ask about somebody. But Ed ran through the history of the coaches, and I started that. I got him going on it and gave him a call yesterday, and his wife. Don't give Ed and I the credit. His wife did from 1949 back to 1930 and found all that information up for us and stuff. So his wife Susie deserves credit. As far as other credits, Ed talked about his tenure and his state championships in 74 and 75. But we have 2 other coaches, Ralph McQuiggan for 79. He won the 2A championship, and Mark Ramsey won the championship in 2022. Then in 1986, Dale Patton led one of our teams to 2A runner-up in the state tournament. And then in 2016, Ed came back to help coach with Mark Ramsey when he took over. And we were runners-up that year in 2016. So that's St. Teresa's effort in the state championship successes. And Kevin, I looked up some information from the IHSA. Kevin touched on it. Jacardier, who I first of all, I came in '95. My daughter started coming to school there. So I got wrapped up in the booster club, started a spirit wear thing. They wanted to start that. And that, we had to start off with, we had the leftovers from an all-school reunion the previous summer. So we were given those clothes to sell, and then we could keep the profits and reinvest in other clothing. Well, we did that, and from there, it's the head of the booster club said, Deacon, you keep half of what you make and reinvest it, and give the other half to the booster club to get it going and get it really developed. So I started doing that, and over back in '95, '96. And then I had started helping Scott Davis, who I had known. We have Pat Altoff back in the crowd, but I ran around with his older brother Mike. And Pat, what are you, 4 years, 5 years younger? 5 years younger, but he's the same age as Scott Davis. So I met Scott Davis in when he was in high school, running around with family friends, and we were friends and acquaintances from there. But Scott had helped me, give me ideas for the spirit wear and stuff like that, and we became good friends. And I don't know how this happened, but in '98 and '99, I was asked to help coach girls softball. And people knew I had played slow pitch softball, but not regular softball. So anyway, got involved there and did that until our son came to school there in '99. Our daughter graduated in '99, and I was over helping Scott and them, and we took over. Scott had taken over the football field, trying to mow it and stuff. And as everybody knows, that football field was the pits. And then, but we tried there and tried to make it better. And then in 2001, I think it was, Kevin Boaz still here? He might be able to, they crowned the football field. Prior to that, there was times we were out there digging holes in the middle of the field, putting sump pumps in those holes and trying to drain the field out because of such a bowl out in the middle. And people just didn't want to come and play there. Coaches dreaded to come there. And so we tried to do what we could. They crowned it and made it better in 2001. And then 2002, I was asked to help coach by Scott Davis. He needed a coach. And anyway, I said, Scott, my son's here. I'll have to check and see what he says about it. And I'll have to check at home. But I drove a truck for UPS for 36 years. In '95, I started going to work at 3 in the morning. Ronnie can attest to some of these and tell you stories about that. But anyway, so I would go to work at 3 in the morning, get off, go over there, mow the football field, help Scott paint it for games. And then 2002 to 2010, I helped him coach. But in that process, as Pat, Dawson, and most everybody here, I told Scott, since I've coached or been involved with football, it's been 30 years, and the game has changed. I had to relearn the game and different things. So that led me to helping him for 10 years, or from 2002 through 2010, and that was a 7-day-a-week job. Back in those days, freshman JV and varsity football, and then those games, the practices during the week, having practice on Saturday morning, then running around to get video. I think Kevin talked about they started scouting teams and stuff. And I remember those days, but they were videotaping games. And on Saturday morning after morning practice, we would go make a run somewhere in the state to get video of the next game. And then Scott would analyze that game, start that evening or afternoon, analyzing the game through Sunday morning and come back Sunday morning. And then Sunday afternoon or evening, we would have a coaches meeting for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours of what we wanted to do and how to prepare for the next week's game and stuff. But that was a long period of time doing that for me anyway. And anyway, during that period of time, again, Kevin mentioned Sean Dunning and Jacardier Wright. And I had the pleasure of being involved with coaching both of those kids. And I got some records off of IHSA just for information. I'll read them to you if you want to see them later. But teams' most consecutive wins, Decatur St. Teresa, 71-75. There's a discrepancy whether it's 47 or 49, but we'll go with 49 because Ed and I grew up together and he's in charge. He's bigger. Team's most consecutive undefeated seasons is 72 through 75, 4. Most yards total offense in a game. St. Teresa versus Shelbyville in 2011, 852 yards in that game. Most rushing in that game, 617, passing 235. Most rushing TDs in the for that game was 11. All-time individual record, scoring offense, most career points. Ranked number 2 in the state, most career points, 902. And then that's Jacardier Wright, 2015 to 2018. Most points in a season, ranked number 3 in the state with 330 points in a season. Jacardier Wright, St. Teresa, 2018. All right. Here's an add-on. Being there for those games, I can tell you that probably 60% of those games, 70 maybe, Jacardier maybe played the first half, started the second half for a series, and didn't play after that because we were ahead enough where there was a running clock and we wanted to have all the kids play. And of course, you don't want somebody to get injured that you know you really need. But he could have had a lot more. So I just wanted to add that because there's people that think some of these records are set in stone and that was for the entire game. Jacardier could have had a lot more yards, points, and everything else had he played all the games in a season. Most touchdown careers, ranked number 2 in the state with 150 touchdowns was Jacardier, 2015 to 2018. Ranked number 19 in the state, 89, Sean Dunning, and that was, I don't have the year down for that. 04, 05, and 06, that's where. So he had 89 in those 3 years. Most TDs in a season, ranked number 1 in state, Jacardier Wright, 55. Ranked number 7 in the state, 49, Sean Dunning in 2006. All-time individual records, career rushing, 8,821 yards for Jacardier in 2015 to 2018. He's ranked number 2. IHSA most rushing yards in a season, ranked number 5 in the state, 3,127. Sean Dunning in 2005, 12 games, 327 attempts. IHSA, most TDs rushing career, ranked second in the state, 133, Cartier Wright. IHSA TDs rushing season, ranked number 4 in the state, Cartier Wright with 48 in 2018, ranked number 17 in the state with 40, Sean Dunning, 2005. So that's just some stats and stuff and presentations there. Like I say, I'm not a speaker, I more or less this and that, but I could talk about all these coaches. Ed's here, I could talk about him. We played grade school together. Then we played high school together and kept in contact and stuff. And then Brett Miller's here, and I've known him. He was about my son's age, and then he came aboard, and I was involved with him after Scott's tenure. I didn't want to coach anymore because of all the traveling at the time, but I helped out as equipment manager and taking care of the field over at St. Teresa, and did that through Scott, Tim Briley, and Mark Ramsey, and then Brett took over, but I had to have a knee replacement, and I just couldn't move well enough to keep up with him and stuff. I tried, and I was always welcome, still am, I think, still welcome anytime to come over and watch, but and I just can't move well enough to do it. All right, so I guess that's enough of me. I'll just turn it over to Kevin again, and let the storyteller start, and go from there.
Great job, Deke. Thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah, I mentioned the record book, but I didn't know all that stuff. I'd like to call up Pat Dawson now to tell a couple of stories I think he's got, and we're making him tell them anyway. I don't know if he's even thought of it, but I put him on the spot here.
Do I get paid? Or?
Yeah, you get that. Come on up, Pat.
Well, we played football at St. Teresa. It was the middle 60s, and we had leather helmets. You're laughing? We weren't laughing. We had to wear them. Leather helmets, okay? Practice, 90 degrees. Could you have water? No. Water was forbidden. What'd they give us, Ed? Salt tablets. And people today are going, what kind of world were they in? But we had a wonderful time. Deacon, he played up. We had our group, and I'll talk about it. But Deacon, we brought him up because he was Deacon. You know why they called him Deacon? After the Rams, right?
Yes. Deacon Jones.
Yeah. So we're in defense, and Ed always was kind of our leader, and we were going to kind of favor this side. He said, we don't need to favor that side because Deacon is the defensive end. So we favored this side. So one story was, and Bob Ernst was our coach, and love him to death, athletic director, baseball coach, basketball coach, football, history teacher, swept the halls, whatever, you know. Just a wonderful guy. But he could be tough. And it was one of those real hot days, and a player named Dan Morrison, which his nickname was Gawk. Because if you had a girly magazine somewhere, that he would try to run it down, wouldn't he? So we called him Gawk. So he's on the defense, and I forget who comes through the line, but just knocks Gawk back 10 feet. Well, the first thing out of his mouth came the F word. Now this is like 1965, it was forbidden. Well, Bob Ernst just went insane. So he calls the manager over He said, "Get me that soap." Now this isn't Dial soap. I mean, this is heavy duty industrial soap. So he's got to come up and take a big bite out of this soap. And we're going, "Oh my God." Well, after practice, since we didn't have any water, we sprinted, throwing our stuff off to get in the showers as fast as we could. And we drink out of the showers, and here's Gawk with bubbles coming all over. But I'll have one more story, and then that's it. But our line, I was proud of our line. You know, Ed was one of the bigger tackles in the state. Nick Buford, he could walk on his hands. He could do anything when he wanted to. He was our other tackle. You know, 200 pounds. I was one of the guards, centers. So our line was pretty tough. So we're going up and we're going to play Clint. Now it's the end of the season. So anybody that played football, you know at the end of the season, it gets cold. So we're up there and it's cold as whatever. And the guy across from Nick, now Nick's like what, 6'5", 260. And the guy's like $180 across, so if that. Tom Green's our quarterback. I'm playing guard. Ed's over here. All of a sudden, the defensive player flashes through like a freight train, untouched, over Nick, and knocks Tom Green down. His helmet's sideways. He's got grass in his face. And we get back to the huddle, and we're all lined up, and he's trying to get his helmet back around. And Tom Green says to Nick Buford, "What the hell did you do?" He said, "Tom, I was too tired to block."
That's a mic drop, huh?
I remember all that stuff.
It was true.
I remember that, too.
So, you know, in a football team, there's always a guy that you want to not make mad. You don't want to make mad. You don't want to piss him off. And we had a guy on our team like that, and he actually taught all of us how to play football, what it meant to play football. And I would like to hear from him tonight, Mr. Doug Kennard. Come on up, Doug.
I can't
Tell a
follow
story.
that
Tell a story.
stuff. I can't follow that stuff.
Come on, tell a story. He can tell a story.
I'm talking about Edward Squad, huh? See, I'm getting you for this. Hey, just looking around here, seeing all the past athletes and the people that came to do this, it's an honor to be here with Eddie, Pat, Deke, Hunts, best quarterback in this city.
Wait a minute,
ever.
you got Mike Boyd back here too.
I'm sorry. Who? Hey, you're number 2, Mike. And hey, but all the people that came out for this is very much. I mean, I'm like Deke. I'm not very good up here, but what St. Teresa taught me is a good life, a good morals, and the man that taught me a lot was Coach Dick Munn. God love him. And playing alongside Kevin, Unts, and the guys that we're missing now that have passed. But being at St. Teresa, being at Bulldog, meant everything in the world for me. And seeing this turnout is tremendous. And I mean, there's stories that, well, we have to X-rate these. But I mean, it was an honor going there. And like I said, with Eddie, Deke, and Pat, you know, freshman year hamburger squad. And then you're going, hell, I don't want to go up there. Because they don't care about freshmen. But they taught me to be a better player. And it meant a lot to me to know everybody in here. And like I said, it's an honor just looking at you guys. And honoring the great players that was around here. I'm cutting it short, Deke.
Good job. No, I think it was a good job. Good job. Good job.
Where's the whiskey?
I think there's a place over here. I'm not sure. Does anybody else anybody got stories? I want to call up a guy who doesn't think I'm going to call him up here in a second, because to me, he was one of the best all-round athletes that St. Teresa ever produced. And I'd like to hear some stories about his team. I'd like to hear Rick Forbes up here. Come on, Rick. Tell a story. You can think of one on your way up here, Rick. Rick was a heck of an athlete, basketball, football, everything. So even in baseball, a great baseball player. So come on, tell the story, Rick.
There you go. Oh, what can I say? We had definitely had a very good repertoire with all our players on the 73, 74 team. Actually, it went longer than that, 40, and it was 47, right? It was. Okay, all right. Don't have a whole lot to say. I do know that with Pat and Mike, my brother Jimmy, Norton, all those 73, 74 players were good to me. I do know that. Kevin, you were good to me. I remember you had, after we lost to Monticello for the first time that year. Anyway, that was the year
Our
that.
only loss.
8-1, right?
And it's because Norton wasn't there.
That's why he's not here now.
I know, that's why he didn't come tonight.
But anyway, I know that. Excuse me. I know that being part of that year, that we were definitely, everyone looked at us, especially after we didn't play MacArthur. But we would have had all of those victories too. But anyway, very, very bad at talking. So thank you so much for asking me to share my wisdom. That shows my wisdom there.
Sorry to put him on the spot. I think, since I'm putting people on the spot, I think the next speaker should be Jerry Dawson. He's got stories. Come on, Jerry, get up here. Well, we don't want to hear any law enforcement stories, okay?
Eisenhower game against Scott Davis.
There you go.
Our senior year at Pickett Field.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Dawson. The one, the only Jerry Dawson.
Have you noticed so far that everybody that walks up here limps? Now, one thing, Coach Boehm was talking about the start of the playoffs. Well, my senior year, they let us add a game. Said you can't have the playoffs, but we'll let you add a game. Of course, we all wanted to play MacArthur, and that wasn't happening. We ended up playing Eisenhower, which actually turned out to be pretty neat because we knew Bucky Bell, Brian Bell, Deerdorf, Scott Davis. We knew these guys just from hanging out at South Shores Park. So it was really neat playing them, and then it kicked off our season. We were 10-0, and at the time that was the best record. And then the rest was history because we got blown away by the teams following behind it. But one thing about St. Teresa football, I know growing up, with my brothers, and a lot of people say they're bums. But, Pat was a bum, I was a bum. Now, Mike and Tom, they were the good Dawsons. But I will say this, my success, my brother Pat's success, I know a lot of it had to do with, football and St. Teresa football. Now, it got me, at the time, SIU was Division I. I went down there, and because of my faults, I let it get away from me. I didn't take it seriously. At St. Teresa, we were a family. We were good. We beat everybody. Went down there, it's a business, not fun, all practice. They play mind games with you at practice. I'm making excuses, but the thing is, it wasn't the same. But the 4 years I played at St. Teresa, other than having a great family, great parents, was a foundation to succeed in life. And, that's something that I'll always have in my heart to my dying breath, was those days at St. Teresa, especially football, just made me a lot better person, gave me some character, and it's just something I'll always have to my dying days.
See what I mean about brotherhood? It really is. And again, stay in touch with your teammates. I live close to one of our teammates that these guys know. He couldn't make it tonight, Dan Doyle. And Dan, I'll just tell a story about Dan. He went to play at Missouri after he left, and we did a lot of pulling. Guards got out in space, and he was fast, and he would knock people off, when he got out there. But anyway, he played at Missouri, and he played with another guy from the Decatur area who was a beast from Warrensburg. His name's John Blakeman. He was a running back, big guy, piston knees, trying to tackle him. And they went down to Alabama one game, and they beat them. They beat Alabama. He goes, we weren't supposed to win, but we beat Alabama. And he tells a story, and I just saw John Blakeman a few months ago with Dan, that Blakeman scored the winning touchdown, and Doyle was leading the way. And he got in the end zone, and Doyle landed on top of Blakeman. And you guys know, everybody, you get your face masks about this far apart from each other. You could smell each other's breath. And Blakeman is not celebrating, jumping up and down. He said, Doyle, get them off me. He said he wasn't celebrating, he wasn't doing anything. But, so I'm able to keep in touch with him, and that's great. So Dan gives you his best wishes tonight. So I think Mike Boyd should come up here. I think he should tell some stories. Mike Boyd, tremendous quarterback at St. Teresa. It's great to see him here. And think of a story, Mike, when you come up here. It's one of my quarterbacks. Yeah, Doug made him number 2. I don't know if he's gonna like that too much, but.
Hell, I'll take number 2. What the hell? Jerry was a hell of a quarterback. It was a great time to with these guys, Jerry and those guys, starting at kind of the role of the football program, and we kind of continued it on, and then the success just kept snowballing on and on and on. And Coach Munn was such a stickler about stuff. Your footwork, how you threw the things, how you handled the ball, all those things. And he'd chew your ass. It didn't matter if you were a quarterback or if you were a running back or a linebacker or whoever. He'd chew your ass if you weren't doing it. Yeah. And Jerry, I wish you would have told that story about O'Connell.
That's a whole night.
I know. Jerry and I had a conversation for an hour and a half the other night. We covered so much ground. It was such a fun time talking to him. And
Share it, come on, man.
oh, well, Jerry would be the one to tell that. I'm gonna have him come back up here, but he's got more details on it. But it was just such a fun time. It was magical. And I always talk about my brother-in-law. He's gone now, but he grew up in the south side of Chicago. He played against Dick Butkus in high school. And then later on, he worked with Dick Butkus's two older brothers, who made Dick Butkus look like the baby. He was a baby of the family. They beat the crap out of him. The reason he's was so tough was because he had these older brothers that stomped his ass. And they were bigger than him. And my brother-in-law tells that they carried a baby grand piano up 2 or 3 flights of stairs, two brothers by themselves. But anyway, my brother-in-law always told me, he said, the years with you guys, and he was real partial to our team too, because his brother-in-law was on there. But he always said to me that he goes, you know, I grew up in the south side of Chicago, and he said, I've seen some football teams, and he said, you guys, as far as rounded off defense, line, offense, running backs, receivers, everybody, defensive backs, all that. He said, you guys are one of the most rounded teams I've ever seen. And he always put that as a you know, y'all know that Coach lost all the films and everything and all whatever memorabilia and everything with the fire he had. I still got some slides that my brother-in-law took, and I'm hoping to make some nice little pictures for maybe some people. But I'm missing Norton tonight.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
We all are.
Yeah. One of Bob's favorite things is to bust my chops.
You're good at getting him too.
I get him, you know what, I'm real sneaky though. I just kind of, I'll say something and he'll kind of go, what? You know, I'll get him now and then, you know, but most of the time he gets me pretty good. But when I went over to visit him quite a few years ago, and he handed me this envelope and he said, don't open this till later. You know, I don't want you to see this now. So anyway, I opened it up when I got home, and it was a picture from the paper. And it was me standing in front of the huddle, and everybody's just a mangled mess. You know, Norton's got grass hanging out his face mask, and Krzyzewski's all muddy, and Smitty, Dan Doyle, they're all a mess. And here's me in my lily white uniform. Okay? There's not a speck of mud on me except my right knee. Okay? Not on my face mask, not on my uniform, not on anything. And Norton said, that's how good we protected you. You know what he called me, right? You know? Yeah, he called me all kinds of names. But he said, well, look at you, though. He said, your mom never even had to wash your uniform. He said, Mrs. Boyd was a saint. And he said, she just never even had to wash your uniform. We kept you so protected. And I said, well, what about my knee right there? It's dirty. And he goes, oh, for crying out loud, are you kidding me? And I said, wait a minute. I said, I don't think I got tackled, but I said, I think I got that knee dirty because my shoe came untied and I had to kneel down. And I said, I put my knee in the dirt and the mud, and I said, that's how that knee got dirty. And of course, you know, then he went really ballistic. You know, so yeah, just a great time and fun. And it's been, you know, I've watched several games over the years. You know, you're talking about Jacardia Wright and Dunning and all the other different coaches and different people and the kids that come through there. And I'd always go catch a couple games, and most times with maybe Bob. But it's just been fun to really watch and see the success that they've continued on. And yeah, and hopefully it will continue on to further and further. But yeah, there's a few other stories that I kind of been reminiscing quite a bit lately. After I talked to Jerry, I was figuring out just some fun things that happened to me, and I remember, Kevin, it was a Sox and Jocks night, Thursday night, and we were kind of getting towards the end of practice. I think you were kind of ready to get out of there, and Coach goes, now come on, let's go one more good play now. And I'm standing in front of the huddle, and you looked over at me and you go, run a stay pattern, which I took the snap, took about a step or two back and went right over to Kevin because he didn't take off and run or anything. He just stood and caught the ball, and Coach went ballistic. Do you remember that? And he made us run on a Thursday Sox and Jocks night because you guys aren't serious and you're goofing around and blah, blah, blah. And it was Kevin's fault. Kevin's fault because I let him talk me into doing that, see? But yeah, you remember that?
That's the way that the world goes right.
Oh man, it was bad.
Yeah.
But then we still won the following night. But we played a good game. But
that
yeah,
part.
yeah. But and I was kind of maybe hoping to see Pat Schultz here tonight
Well, I'll talk.
because he's down in your area too, right?
Yeah, he couldn't make it tonight.
He couldn't make it. Pat Schultz was one heck of a ball player. Not the biggest guy, but man, was he tough. Very tough guy. And Coach Munn used to make me nervous all the time. I'd get all wound up and hyper, and and he'd be in practice, and come on, yeah, Boyd, Boyd, and I'm like, oh man, Schultz about every couple weeks or so, I'd be standing up in front of the huddle like this, and Coach would be going, hurry up, get that, do this, run that, and everything else. And every once in a while, Schultz he'd reach out and hit me below the belt. And I'd go, Coach would be over, what's going on over there? And Schultz would be laughing. He'd go, settle down, because I'd be talking 100 miles an hour. Kind of like I'm doing right now. But anyway, Schultz would do stuff like that to me. And he just, he was real squinty-eyed, and he just kind of looking at me and laughing, And I swear to God that the last time it happened, I could have swore I saw Coach on the sidelines. And I swear he saw what happened and was still hollering at me to call the play and get it running and everything. But I could have swore I saw him turn away, and he was laughing as he turned away because he saw Schultz do that to me. But anyway. All right, Jerry, come on up here and tell that tell the O'Connell story. Oh yeah, it's a good one, because Coach would, like I said, Coach would call you out if you weren't, if you were slacking off and if you weren't running hard and all that kind of stuff.
It didn't matter who you were either.
No, you got busted. You got busted.
Yeah. Come on.
Real quick story, Jerry. It's a good one.
Jerry,
I thought it was funnier than heck.
Jerry, that's senior year, Kid Sullivan.
Oh, yeah.
That is
Hey,
worth
get
telling.
ready, Pat. You're next.
Real quick with Michael Connell, he was kind of the prima donna of the team, and they said how Coach Munn yelled at everybody. He did yell at everybody except Michael Connell. And we think that his dad was giving Coach money, so that might have been why. But anyway, we would always have films on Sunday night, and you dreaded films because Munn would just pick you out and just scream at you, yell at you. Well, this one play, O'Connell breaks it open, and he's running downfield, and Munn goes, Mike, I don't think you're running very fast. Well, in the next frame, here I am catching to throw a downfield block, and he goes, a lineman's catching you, Mike, and it's Dawson. Now I know you're not running fast. But anyway, Pat wants to tell me this, or wants me to tell this story. We're playing Sullivan.
Wait a minute, is this your story, Pat? Okay.
And Sullivan had these three 300-pounders in the middle of the line. You had to run around them because you couldn't move them. And coach keeps trying to run these trap plays. Yeah, senior night. You can't trap a 310-pound guy that doesn't come across the line of scrimmage. But anyway, so he calls all three of us. 3 sophomores come in, take me, Mike Doyle, Pat Altoff's spot. Doyle thinks we're going to get rewarded. Hey, he's going to tell us what a great. Well, I knew what was coming. So as we're running off the field, I backed off because I knew he only had 2 hands. So he grabbed Altoff's face mask, grabs Doyle's face mask. Well, all he had left for me was a leg. So he's kicking me, and he's screaming that, we're no good pieces of shit, and you're not going to play the rest of the game if you don't get your act together. Well, he sent in these 95-pound sophomores, so we knew that wasn't going to happen. But anyway, I was the only smart one because I knew what was coming. So I knew he only had 2 hands. But anyway, that's the story Pat wanted me to tell.
Wow. So I think, didn't he? I don't know if we've talked about Mark Buechele, but Mark Buechele was probably one of the best running backs that ever came out of St. Teresa. He went to Air Force and played there, and I don't know if you've ever seen that stadium they got in Colorado Springs. Yeah, it's cut in a mountain. I drove by there one time going, man, I can see why somebody would want to play here. It was really cool. So does anybody else have anything they want to say? Because I want to hear from our coach right now, Brett Miller, who might have some NFL stories himself. St. Louis Rams, San Francisco 49ers. We're so fortunate to have him as our coach now. And I want to say hey to Brett. Welcome.
Thank you. I didn't know we were wearing our white jackets tonight, but I heard
a dinner jacket.
I heard about it before I even got here, and I do feel like I'm a part of the group, not only because I'm limping up here and I just got a fake hip about 8 weeks ago, but back to Pat's point, I'd take a whole bunch of guys that want to wear leather helmets. That's a certain kind of roughness that I think football still deserves and still is required for success. But I'm going to have a seat. So kind of what I'd like to talk about and highlight. Not only you mentioned the NFL. St. Teresa has a Super Bowl champion in Jacardier Wright, and it is so hard to win at the NFL level because everybody is phenomenal, and the fact that we have a St. Teresa representative that won one, I mean, that speaks volumes not only about our program but about the people, and so I can't say enough about that. And then a guy that backed up Jacardier, Zeke Lewis. So Zeke Lewis was a backup to Jacardier, and he played at Eastern Illinois and probably only had about 20 or 30 reps. So he was so good. After 20 or 30 reps, he still got to play at the Division I level. I mean, so we were stacked from the running back level, and I was taking notes over there. That's the history degree that I got that kind of continues to live. But I think, after hearing all the stories, like kind of what I want to talk about is maybe my entire tenure at St. Teresa, and really it began before I started coaching with Coach Ramsey. I came to a game. And unfortunately, it was a loss for St. Teresa versus Central A&M. Central A&M was loaded. I had a Friday off. I was taking a year off of coaching. We'd won a state championship at Monticello, and I had the opportunity to coach my cousin and all his buddies that, during my tenure at U of I, they'd always be out there. So you'd go play a big Big Ten game, and then you'd come out and have to play another game because all these kids wanted to play. And I was his cousin. And it was, in my family, you get out there and you mix it up. So even though I'd had 18 tackles versus Iowa, it was still required that I go out and play some two-hand touch with these guys. And so to be able to coach them was awesome. But I took a year off and showed up at St. Teresa game. Knew it was going to be a good game. Knew St. Teresa was tough, and also knew that Central A&M was going to be all right. and watching a play at the end of the half, and they threw a little crossing route. A&M threw a crossing route. We were in man-to-man coverage, and they scored. And I look around, I see Mr. Mark McLeod, and he locks eyes with me. And I knew then that my butt was headed to St. Teresa to coach the defense. So, and then it all kind of happened. Mr. Ken Henderson, got involved, and it worked out, right? So I worked for my, yes, sir. And I worked for my father-in-law, Matt Beck, at Beck Tech. I covered the dirt and Champaign, so it made sense for me to coach at Monticello. And when I took the year off, obviously the sales numbers go through the roof, and he's like, well, Britt, if you want to coach again, the only place you're going to coach is St. Teresa. So it all kind of worked out. Get the call from Coach Ramsey, who, in my opinion, is the top dog. I know we have a legend here in Coach Boehm, and he actually coached my dad as well. So just one of those deals where getting to be around Coach Ramsey and his staff and Deacon, and to see a bunch of guys that really understood football. And for me, coming from, Eisenhower, then going to U of I, and a little bit of time in the pros, you learn the game at another level, yes, but what you come back to is you realize that football is the same everywhere, and it's really about the people, it's about the coaches, and so I knew I was getting involved in a pretty good thing. We get all geared up for our first year coaching. I got the defense ready, and then COVID happens. So we actually don't get to have a season. We shut it down. We don't know what the world looks like. We're trying to keep the kids motivated. Then, they don't even go to school for a while, and we get to have a spring season. And so, we kind of geared up real quick. We get ready. We head to Clinton. And so I'm calling the defense, a little nervous. You're hanging out with a guy that, all he does is win, and Coach Ramsey, Coach Rui, just a bunch of great guys. And what kind of happened was Clinton comes out of the locker room, and they're huge. They're way bigger than us. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, St. Teresa is St. Teresa, and they're going against this kind of size and all this. And by about the end of the first quarter, I knew what we had. It was special. And what it showed me was we had a bunch of moxie. We had a winning, we come from a winning heritage and a winning community, and the expectation was that we were going to beat the doors off of them, and we did. Denham Cook had a big game that day, and I realized, we're going to win a lot of games. It's unfortunate for that group because I do think that they could have won. They would have been in the running for a state championship. Cord Miller was a heck of a quarterback. The Brummers were coming on, who eventually led us to a state championship. But the fact that we were able to kind of come up with something so quick, be so dominant in 6 games, and then, I did feel for those kids because they did have a great opportunity to move forward. We didn't have playoffs that year. And so really got motivated for that next year. And with that, what was kind of, it was wild because we knew we had there were a bunch of juniors. We had a couple pretty special seniors. And then, so we kind of run through the CIC, and we get to the playoffs. And so that's really gets my juices going, is playoff football, knowing that you got to win or go home. And so we kind of cruise through the South, and we get to Nashville. And some of you guys are probably at that game. Nashville was a special group. I mean, made it to state finals in football, state finals in basketball, and baseball that year. So we went up against a bunch of athletes. I know there was some history prior to that. Take a pretty significant lead into the fourth quarter. And one of the things, I've heard of getting hometown refs and things like that and getting homered. And Denham Cook, it's third down. Me and Coach Ramsey are sitting there talking. Very rarely did he, kind of listen to me on the offensive side. He kind of knew what he was going to do. He just wanted to hear me say stuff, I think. And so he's like, Britt, I think I'm going to give it to Denham. And I'm like, probably what they're thinking, Coach. And so one of those plays, if you guys don't remember, it's at third down, it's a fourth down. We're talking after a third down timeout, and we need 2 yards. And so we hand the ball to Denham Cook, and in my opinion, I'm standing right by the stick because I was watching. I want to make sure we were going to get it, or if we had to get our butts back out there on defense. Denham Cook goes over a guy by about 1.5 yards, or maybe more. Puts the ball down. Everybody's signaling first down. We know we kind of got this thing wrapped up. And sure enough, that ref picks the ball up, walks back a step, puts it down, gives us the first down the other way. It was rough to be a part of. Then we give up a field goal. And the reason I tell that story is because that's what lit the fire, I think, even more, going into the state championship run. So in that state run, we kind of knew the schedule during the year. It was we were going to handle our business, and which they did. And then we got into the playoffs, and it started to creep, right? St. Teresa, we haven't won a state championship in 30 years or 25 years at that time. And so we're going back to the semifinals. We don't know a lot about Johnson City. Johnson City was kind of running the South, ran a wing tee, which is pretty rare for Southern Illinois football. And one of my most vivid memories, it was snowing outside, and they roll up on a big charter bus. And it's a later in the day game, so it's actually kind of getting dark. And I thank God I was the only one in the weight room, because if you're in our weight room, you can see the guys get off the bus. And we think they're pretty big, we just don't know, because a lot of people inflate those stats. And when they got off the bus, that charter coach rose up about a foot. And I knew we had some big boys getting off that bus. And then the doubt started to creep in. And we got into that game. That whole week I was uncomfortable because they were running the wing tee. I didn't play against the wing tee other than once in college. And, I've seen it a couple times in my coaching career, but I was worried. And the reason that we won that game was because of Coach Ramsey. It was because of the guys on the staff that had coached against it so much. We totally changed our practice, behaviors that week. And we got into it, and I was hoping it would work. We had a little brief stint with it versus Athens the year before, and but Johnson City, they were huge. And so I didn't know how it was going to work out. And we just had some great football players, great defensive guys, and we were able to stop them. We held them to 6 points with our starters, which was a great feat for what they had, because they were putting up about 40 or 50 a game. And the play that I was most proud of is that they had a little tight end leak screen, so they'd all run one way. They'd leave the big 6'4" tight end back there, and he scored on that play quite a bit. And we coached it all week. And so whenever they finally threw that thing back, our guy was right there. He didn't make the tackle, but he hung on for dear life, and he was getting drugged by that 6'4" tight end. And it was what was Bryson's last name? Bryson Hendricks. Yeah, Bryson Hendricks was hanging on for dear life. And the guys rallied. We make that play and really just halted all their efforts. So, we took that momentum into the state championship to play Tri-Valley. They knocked off Maroa in a very windy game, and it'd been a lot of fun to play them boys that day. I know kind of how that goes around here, and so in the state championship, having Coach Ramsey there, having a little bit of experience in that moment. That was huge, but the reality was, like, during the week, you started seeing the highlights. You started seeing the history, the tradition of St. Teresa, because they kept saying, St. Teresa's back in the state championship. St. Teresa's the first program to ever win a state championship, and I remember that hitting me kind of like a sack of bricks. And I remember staying up late and knowing I was going to give my best effort to figure these guys out, on the defensive side of the ball, and end up actually helping Coach call one of the touchdowns, actually for Bryson Hendricks, a play we called Channel 6, because he always liked to be on the news, and would do anything he could to kind of make that happen. So, and then the end of the game, we get down to the final play, which all good games should come down to, and they run a wheel route, and Jack Singer end up making a great play for us, knocking the ball down. And I haven't been on the losing side of a state championship game yet, but I did see their coach lay down, and that was the kind of the clip that kind of will live in infamy for me, because he knew that he'd been beat. And those guys, Matt Brummer, Joe Brummer, You mentioned only having one dirty knee. We lived that, right? We won versus Athens, and Joe was clean, and the only thing on his knee, or the only thing on his jersey that was dirty was his knee. Basically because he had to kneel the ball to win the game, right? And so that was a moment of pride for us. And then, Ramsey, he's deserving of every bit of credit that I could ever give, and decided to exit. And we were kind of floundering a little bit, like, what are we going to do? And I think maybe a week before Mr. Hendrickson signed me, we didn't know who was going to be the coach. I definitely wanted to stay as a D coordinator. I wanted to be around. I was running the junior dogs. And it ended up being kind of the best case scenario if I was to take the reins. And so that's when it really started for me, right? Never really had aspirations to be in the Hall of Fame for coaching. I love being around the game. I love hearing all the stories. It makes me feel at home. We don't have this kind of brotherhood at Eisenhower. I don't get to see those guys, so this is special for me. But we get into, and I'll finish with this kind of brief history. But whenever I finally took the head job, we graduated 18. 18 guys, 5 of which played college ball, one of which, Denham Cook, just graduated. He's a stud, played down at Truman State, and got to watch him play a few times. And his work ethic and everything has taken him so far. He's going to continue to be a great human being, but he's a heck of a football player. And but when I started as a head coach, what I really started to feel was the community and the family. Coach Boehm, Mr. Boaz, they wanted to come to our Earn Your Stripes event. So that's where we hand out the stripes before the season. And it was great just to have them, come after me and say, yeah, we'll definitely do it. We're going to come. How many people do you need? I said, well, how many do you want to bring up? And he says, well, I could have the whole team come if you want. And I thought, that's the kind of love and respect and tradition that's here at St. Teresa. And it was great. Coach Boehm, one of the first times that I got to hear him speak, he went through every single game. He didn't have that note card either. And he could tell you the score, tell you who made the plays. And at the end of it, all the student athletes that we had were very impressed with the knowledge, the love, and kind of just the overall excitement and feelings that were brought up by these guys. And we were going into that first season. Now, our first season, we were road warriors. Got kind of kicked out of the conference per se. Look right in the camera and say that if you're watching. But we get kicked out of the conference, and so those kids, a lot of those guys hadn't played a lot of high level ball at the time or varsity ball. And we go play in Indiana, we play in Illinois, we play in Missouri. And what happens is when you win a state championship and get kicked out of a conference, nobody with a medium record or a losing record wants to play you. So we kind of knew what was coming back. And the guys that were reaching out to us were like Elmhurst Immaculate Conception. They were going to pay us $10,000 to come play them. I said, I don't know that a butt whooping like that's worth $10,000, but it's been good for the program. Probably should have did it, Ken. And then East St. Louis, so 6A state champions. So that was what we were up against to even get a game. And so navigating that the last 3 years, it's been interesting, but I truly feel that, this year schedule's right, players are right, and so looking forward to that piece of it. But, closing, and I got to give a shout out to Boaz here, because after we talked about those guys coming up and speaking, he was obviously the most colorful speaker of the group, and we decided to name a drill after him called the Boaz drill, and it made sense for all the guys. So when you see us kind of circle up before a game, and we get one guy or we get 2 guys in the middle, we just call the guys out and they got a hit. That is called the Boaz drill. So know that that's named after this man, and we're living the history that is kind of laid before us. So, but kind of just a message from me and my staff is the people in this room are why St. Teresa is successful. It's not because of the accolades and the effort, it's because of you guys. It's because of the coaches, it's because of the Deacon Davises that are willing to do anything you ask them to do, whether it's wash the jerseys, mow the grass, heaven forbid stepping on Deacon's grass, my God. But, you know, everything that you guys have done does not fall on deaf ears with me. I love football, but the best schools, the best sports communities, they exist because of special people. And so I just want to thank you guys, you know, for allowing me to be the coach here at St. Teresa. It's changed my family. It's changed our whole trajectory. I think it's changing a lot of lives there. And then I do want to say that I see these kids now, like you guys coming back, and I see kids that are coming through St. Teresa. They don't know how special it was to go to St. Teresa, to have the community. I know what it's like to be on the other side of that fence. And so for these guys to be able to come back, you know, be offered jobs, to have a community to come back to, that's why St. Teresa is special to me. That's why I'm excited and will forever be grateful to represent St. Teresa. And so, you know, kind of with that, thank you, and I'll give it back to the man.
Hey, right on. Very good. Yes, sir. Right on, Brit.
Aren't we lucky to have this guy?
Yes.
He knows,
Yes.
he knows some football. Deacon.
Yes, very lucky.
Say something else?
Sure, absolutely. Come on up. Anybody else want to say anything before we wrap up here?
Don't limp, Deacon, don't limp.
Got to fill in. All right. Can you hear me?
Nope.
No?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. We've talked about a lot of people. There's a lot of people, everybody here I know and I have ties with. One person I haven't mentioned or we didn't mention, we've talked about Sean Dunning, talked about Connell, Bouchelle. I'd like to mention Mike Ferriosi. Jim is not in the room, but for us older guys, Mike Ferriosi was the real deal. Pat, Ed, they all know Jimmy is his brother. Yeah, but Mike meant a lot. He's one of my best friends.
One of the best.
And great guy. And wanted to mention that. Second thing, Ken Hendrickson. We got Brit, Ed, and myself. We were coaches and are coaches at St. Teresa. And Brit was bringing up some things here that I think the good coaches, and Ed being one of them, but he was young and everything. I'm talking about Scott Davis and Mark Ramsey. These guys were very good. How they ran their offenses, this and that, and how to prepare for a game, like Brett was talking about and getting prepared. They knew so many coaches from around the state, big time, good coaches. Britt has done it, getting information from Mark and help from Mark. But I know Scott Davis and Mark would make phone calls during the week and talk to former teammates from college and this and that who were big time coaches at schools. How do you play defense against this offense? How do you run against this defense? And it wasn't them, everybody thinking they know everything. They were getting input and learning on the run. I know Brett does the same thing and has asked for help, and I've been there, and so that. Last thing I want to end up with is St. Teresa has meant a lot to me and my family for years and years, going back to the 50s when they even built the gymnasium. My grandfather was donated, but he was construction foreman for Christian Fultz for that. But the nuns, Gordon Voigt, wasn't it Gordon Voigt who was a sports guy at WAND for a while?
Yep.
He would come over when Mark first got there. He would come over and check in. Mark sent him down to me one time, and Gordon and I crisscross paths and clown around, but he sent him down to me. He wanted to do an interview of Mark, and Mark said, if you're gonna talk to somebody, go talk to Deacon. Gordon Voigt came down to me, and so we visited. I said, you don't need to be talking to me. I remember, and I'm proud of it, because it goes back, for me, to the 60s. We all got stories you can tell and stuff, but it was the nuns that we had in the 60s at St. Teresa that I owe a lot to, and seeing how they gave up their lives for us to develop and teach us kids and for us to develop. And that meant a lot. Now, did we always agree? No, I'm not saying that, but I told him, I do this for the nuns and for the school. I don't do it for myself or anybody. I have the time. This is my way of paying back to St. Teresa. So I wanted to say that. And we all, St. Teresa means a lot to all of us. Yes, and so, anyway, just wanted to say that.
I'd like to give Dr. Ken Hendrickson an opportunity if you want to come up and say a few words, and we'll wrap up there. He can be our wrap-up guy. He knows stuff.
A lot of good supporters financially and helping St. Teresa. It's a wonderful school. Yeah, I retired from the dreaded Mount Zion after 25 years as superintendent. I got that when I came here. And I remember I came in and the board interviewed me. I said, you know, I'm retired. I could give you 3 or 4 years, okay? So 19 years have gone by. And as most of you know, this is my last year after 54 years as an educator. So, but let me tell you about St. Teresa. I got to tell you, one of the highlights of my whole career was that state championship. Boy, we had fun, and a lot of you guys were there. And I know education is most important. But let me tell you, athletics are important to kids, developing in them. They're important to the parents, the grandparents, and all the support that St. Teresa has given. And you know, it's a challenge with private school. It was a lot easier when I was a public school superintendent. All I needed is 4 of 7 votes to raise taxes. Here you have to ask people to get the checkbook out and write checks. That's a whole different thing that private schools have to deal with. But I love St. Teresa. I'm going to still be around. I said this story the other day. I remember my final interview before St. Teresa board. And I'm not going to tell you what board member said that, but she said, you know, every time I've seen you, you've been in a red coat at darn Mount Zion. I can't see you in an orange coat. If I don't have that orange coat on anymore, everybody says, where's your orange coat? So, but anyway, bless you all. And I know I can't speak to you on football throughout the years, but this group have not only been important to St. Teresa football, but also to St. Teresa High School. So thank you for everything you do. I really appreciate it.
Okay, that's it. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody. And I got a feeling
Hey, you're picking up the tab, right?
I'll pick it up, and I don't know where to put it. I think the stories are going to be a little juicier after this is over. So, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Appreciate it.